Hey guys, sorry to make you wait on the contest results, but I assure you I was doing something very important. But regardless, it's done now. Hopefully it'll be worth the wait. I'll not waste too much of your time with a big preamble. You've waited long enough, I'm just gonna launch right in. So many mocks that are intended to fit into Bionicle's canon don't really look the part. Big, intricate Toa designs are cool, but they usually just kinda stick out. And that's what makes low part count mocks interesting, because they naturally lend themselves to the sort of part usage you'd see in an official set. This entry is a mock that, I think, pulls off that look really well. The Rogue Makuta experiment is a wanderer dreaming of one day becoming a storyteller. While I didn't get much that explained that origin in detail, I don't think it's even necessary given how much it says on its own. The character's got a lot of history, clearly, but because that's not the focus of the story, it's implied that it's not important, anymore at least. But not important to who? The character maybe? Could this be something he's moved past, like a trauma he's overcome? Okay, that's enough of that tangent. Get used to that kind of analysis though, you'll be seeing a lot more of it as the video goes on. Going back to the mock, I didn't compare this design to official sets just because it looks like one. It's because I can take one look at this design and place it firmly within the realms of a super old combo model. I can totally imagine buying two small Rahi sets and then seeing instructions to make something like this. Or maybe you get a pair of Titan sets, combine them, and then it'd come with a smaller guide to make from the leftover bits. It's a messier construction with a higher contrast color scheme, sticking with the more generally useful parts. The story is a kinda loose fit for the build it's attached to, but I think the lighter levels of story integration works well to carry that combo model aesthetic. Very few of Bionicle's combo models had a presence in the main narrative. Even someone as significant as the Shadowed one can be ignored if you're only interested in a surface level understanding of Bionicle's plot. Granted, the mock being related to Makuta does damage that a bit. The idea of this thing being the result of a Makuta's experiments is more in line with the Makuta sets released with the 2008 stuff, which doesn't fit the OG aesthetic of this design. Build-wise, there is something interesting going on. The mock doesn't really have a bad side. Every angle works great. Even that back's had some love put into it. I can totally read that handpiece as a backpack. The general design is shorter, broader, and on the barer side. I think it does a decent enough job of conveying an older, more wizened character, but given the proportions of Matoran sets, it doesn't do much to set itself apart from a standard body type. It blends right into a crowd of sets that don't convey any of the same ideas as this one. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of reasons why you'd want to design a nondescript character. I just don't think those reasons apply here. The mock doesn't really want to be shy or ordinary, it wants to be a traveler who's got one hell of an origin story. The mock doesn't really showcase either on first glance, and I can't blame anyone who'd look at this and read it as a bare bones mock. It's a design, a decently well crafted one at that, and in terms of concept it's pretty original too. It's Makuta in origin from a story standpoint, but it functions like a Turaga. All of these elements are great, the mock just has trouble connecting them together, and telling that story to a viewer. If that hurdle were to be conquered, I think that this could turn out to be an awesome design. But as much as I want to, I can't judge an entry based on what I think it could be. Still, I'd encourage working on this design. I think you've got something awesome on the horizon. So if you're familiar with how I do a lot of my own designs, I think you should be able to tell exactly why I want to talk about this mock. I absolutely love the colors here. It's layered super well, like everything is just pouring out of those brown parts. Granted, it's super easy to make a clean color scheme when the primary color is black, but clean is clean, and I like clean. Story-wise, I could go into detail explaining everything, but I feel like the mock does an excellent job of that on its own. Like, come on, look at this thing. You know exactly what it is, what it does, how it does it, the works. And that's awesome. A design that clearly communicates what it's about is a good design in my books, and this one is especially verbose. It's at a great size too. The claws are placed just above the heads of the Matoran it hunts, but at the same time, its limited modes of attack and relatively small size mean they'd have a far harder time dealing with Toa. I also have to say, I really like how the shoulders work here. The extra point of articulation on the core CCBS bone lets one arm reach out a lot farther than the other, while pulling the other back. The fact that such a stretch is even possible also sells the idea that the black mass is more of some near fluid, fleshy material, rather than anything structured with bones and the like, which of course gives it an even stronger connection to the thing, which I'm fairly certain is what inspired this design. But if you've been perceptive, you may have spotted the reason why this is just an honorable mention. Technically, the mock uses 26 parts, not 25. Now, don't get me wrong, I can totally see how this might have been missed. The 26th part is an eye stalk piece in the Mata head, and if you've ever tried to separate those from their intended homes, yeah, I can't really blame someone for seeing all that as one piece. Plus, it's not even that important to the mock, it's not like a ball joint or anything. It's just there because it's forcefully attached to the head and near impossible to remove. If it could be removed, it wouldn't really impact anything. Personally, I don't care that much. Like I said in the announcement video, this contest is a super casual thing. I'm not going to get uppity about this. But with that said, people in the comments may be upset about a quote-unquote rule-breaking mock winning this whole thing, so I didn't feel right putting it in the top 3. Still, an excellent design with top-notch flavor and easily among my favorite entries. Speaking of things that straddle the rules, I never actually specified that you had to use bionicle parts, and one of the entries took full advantage of that. Not that I'm complaining, the end result is pretty cool. Meet Gage. He's a chill robot, serving as a charging robot for a whole other city of bots. He's able to do quick, on-the-spot repairs and enjoys helping those in need, which makes him rather popular. The robots of Grey Matter City know him by name, so if they have a problem, they know who to call. Now, the reason that I'm talking about this mock is that there are a couple instances of part usage that I think are really interesting to dissect. The jacket conveys some degree of sentience, because if Gage was a robot doing only his pre-programmed tasks, he wouldn't need to wear anything. It would just be built in. But it's not, so I can only assume that his use of it, likewise, is not. Another interesting use of parts is the slight tilt to that eyepiece. There's a few ways of reading it. Maybe it's slightly busted. Gage can do repairs, but he can't do everything. Maybe he's so focused on helping others that he's got no time for himself. Or maybe it's not broken at all. A slight imperfection in the design might make him look more relatable, more human. A bit less stoic and goal-driven and more casual and fun. A more casual design doesn't just reinforce the helpful persona, it blurs the line somewhat between his professional and off-hours presentation, which makes sense given the way he goes about helping others. If he has the tools, he does the job, not caring too much for time windows. Gage suffers from a lot of the same problems as the Rogue Makuta experiment from before. With so many parts dedicated to structure, very little is left to actually dress things up. So you're left with a super well-built dude, but it does little to go beyond the realms of just a dude. I find it interesting that two mocks built with totally different systems ended up falling into the same fundamental issue. At the very least, the way it's built allows for plenty of articulation. I can see that extra point in the thigh being especially useful. Overall, a cool design with some elements of the characters shining through. I just wish I could see more of it. There's one thing I've always believed. Know your skill set, push it, but don't go too far in a single attempt. This isn't an insult. Knowing your strengths is a skill in its own right, and tailoring your designs to that skill will make them better, not worse. This next build isn't too extravagant, but I don't think it's trying to be. In fact, to give this thing more detail might actually hurt it. Sestra is a Zesk without a tribe. She lost it to a bone hunter raid and wanders the desert trying to find somewhere to call home. Now, you may ask, what makes this design so different? You just listed indistinct designs as cons for 2 other entries, so why is it a benefit here? Simple, really. Some characters benefit from having unassuming designs, and I think this is one of them. Sestra isn't extravagant, she's trying to survive. She doesn't look that different from a normal Zesk because that's exactly what she is, a normal Zesk in an extraordinary situation. Her design is straightforward and down to earth, blending perfectly into Bionicle's canon and perfectly fitting her story. That cloak does something similar to what Gage's jacket accomplished. Sestra is this monstrous scorpion beast, but with the addition of that single article of clothing, makes her seem far more human. And considering her backstory, that human element is especially important. There's something fascinating about her design that's usually threatening being so vulnerable. It's an interesting fusion of fear and empathy that I don't see many other designs aiming for, and I think it's perhaps the mock's biggest strength. Of course, there's a bit of an elephant in the room here. It's probably a bit too similar to a Zesk. Many people will look at this and just see it as lazy. It's got a custom torso design, and while that would normally distinguish it from other Zesk build-wise, that torso spends most of its time being covered up by the cloth. It's an inefficient use of parts in a contest all about efficient parts usage. Still cool, but I would have liked to see those parts go elsewhere. And now we get into the top 3. This contest was a close race, but if I did my job right, you should be able to see what makes this mock a cut above the rest. This is the Tanako, a small Rahi that makes up for its size with blinding speed and minor elemental powers. This is just the fire variant. Many versions exist, each adapted to their own environment. There's an impressive amount of lore behind this thing. I don't think I could go through it all here, but it should be pasted in the description. I recommend giving it a look if you're into that. This is a really solid build, a strong use of color with vibrant colors for the plumage and darker ones for the bird underneath. I can totally imagine palette swapped versions of this thing for different elements, probably using different larger bits to give each one a unique feel. I love the way that jaw is built too. It's attached at the front, not the back, but it still looks like it can open normally. The gold color is off, but it's close enough that it doesn't clash too much. When it comes to part selection, I appreciate how swept back everything is. Makes sense that the plumage here would have a directional quality. It's all contoured too, to sell a more flowing, organic look. Everything does it. The wings, the underbelly, not the back though. The top of that carapace shell gives the impression of something angled forward. Still, the color works, and the marbling pattern helps sell the idea of it being a non-structured mass of feathers, so it works well enough. The mock's biggest and I think only major weakness lies in its proportions. The legs are positioned too far back, making the whole thing look way more front-heavy than it is. Flightless birds generally have stubby tails and rounded bodies, which this mock reflects, but realistic bird necks are longer and the legs come from center mass. The touch of realism is nice, but I can't help feel like shaving some of the bulk to add a tail would have helped the mock a ton. Less cassowary, more roadrunner. Sure, it's less realistic for a pure ground dweller, but when it comes to this topic, trying to find a middle ground between realism and stylized designs often ends up confronting the uncanny valley. Oh, also, look at this photo. It's very important, very good. Thank you for your time. Remember the issue that a few earlier entries suffered from? If you dedicate so many parts to structure, you're not left with much for the character, but if those limbs are taking up so many parts, you have to ask yourself, do you even need them? Come on, look at this little skittery boy. You know he's just gonna scamper and scuttle about and probably kick your teeth in. And that's not far off from how a Metzenhall operates. They are guardians of the forest, mostly harmless but can be very annoying in groups. They mostly just run fast and report disturbances to other forest spirits, but once they swarm up, they can get stuff done. And that stuff tends to be very, very annoying. This identity of a cute troublemaker is at the core of Metzenhall's design, and I feel like the eyes and overall stature are the main causes. The eyes are big, which makes it look cute. They're on either side of the head, which means it's not a predator. The way they bulge out makes it look alien, something unknown, something to maybe be cautious of. As for the stature, it looks like the mock wants to lean forwards. Its attention is ahead of itself. It sees something that needs investigating. But that's not all, because the feet are also angled forward. The thing looks ready to jump somewhere at a moment's notice. It's sitting still, for now. But it's going to move at some point, and when it does, it's going to go fast. And then, of course, there's the lack of arms. I think it does a bit more than just making it look alien or saving parts. If this mock was a real creature, there could be only one reason why it doesn't have arms. Because it doesn't need them. It doesn't just have eyes and legs, it has exceptional eyesight and powerful legs. The lack of arms puts yet more focus onto these aspects of the build, emphasizing them in the viewer's mind and in the mock's character. The detail work is excellent. Pairing the bush with the leaves helps a lot with that foresty theme, and the barbs mirror the eyes rather well. Unfortunately, that added detail came with a cost. Every single part of the mock, the story, the personality, the overall design, everything, care a lot about the legs, but the actual build of the mock seems to disagree. Those legs are just one-piece static logs. No articulation, no detail, everything between the hips and feet just feels underwhelming. Like, imagine if the thing was just a neck, head, and two legs, no torso at all. That would fit the existing themes a lot better, it would allow for more love to be poured into the vitals, and its otherworldly appearance would help carry the impish theme. And now, the big reveal. This has been an awesome contest from all sides, and I really appreciate everyone who took the time to enter. But as much as I love all the entries, there can only be one winner. Without further ado, I give you the top entry. Snowhawk. Wait. Ing? I'll be honest, I have no idea what that's there, but it's in the name, so it gets included. Snowhawking, let's go! It's the best of everything. The angular design, the use of negative space to make it seem larger than it is, splashes of blue to add life to a grayscale color scheme, the textured silver mixed with smoother white to apply a different structure in those areas. It's got good stuff, man, I don't know what to tell you. Now, I never got a story to go along with this entry beyond an image of a much larger version, and with the parts usage echoing the larger design, it's easy to see the relation. I can't understate how much something like this adds to the build. It implies more than just a single creature ever could. Even if you state that it's part of a larger species, it shows how it grows. It's a lifespan, not just a snapshot. It's quite literally show, don't tell, and that's something I can appreciate. There's a lot to dissect here, but I think the directional elements are probably the most fun to think about. Every major silver piece is dedicated to this goal, and that kind of consistency is awesome to see. Part selection seems pretty solid as well. The thinner blade pieces have a slight curve on the inside, which echoes the more overtly curved ones mounted on top. It carries the same general feel without pulling the direction too far inward, and the length of them, pointing straight back, it just makes it look so fast. The general proportions contribute to this too. Most of the mass is ahead, its focus is on the front, not just having a few parts trail back. It's like a teardrop or an arrow. The weight is in the front, it's designed to move forward as fast as possible. Are these proportions realistic? Not even slightly, but they're not meant to be. They're cool, and they're very effective at being cool. There's only one major flaw with it. It's possible that you didn't even notice the single leg until just now, and that makes sense. That part of the mock is literally drowned out by all the more important bits. I don't doubt that it would have 2 legs if there was a higher parts limit, but if you're going to cut anything short, that's probably the best place to do it. The focuses of this mock are up top, the wings, the back, the head, the tail, and they all cover up the underside. They get the eyes, so they get the parts. Excellent usage here. So that's it. Congratulations to all who entered. It's clear that every mock here has something to love, and cutting things down to a top 3 was pretty hard. These entries were super fun to analyze, and I look forward to doing it again sometime. That said, my next contest is probably going to have a shorter winners video with a separate analysis video as a prize. I'm not going to make you wait this long again. Thanks for entering, thanks for your patience, and I'll see you all in the next one.